Good morning.
Brought some flowers that I found at Goodwill, or a plant thing, but only I found out if I put it here, it's taller than the TV, so
yeah.
that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
A couple minutes yet.
About a minute yet.
About a minute, yep.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing this next week. Time change. We lose an hour.
Actually, so like 15 seconds. Hi, Chad.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
Hey, Mike. There we go.
Okay, welcome to First Universalist Church of New Madison on this almost a spring day. It's getting better every day. It's supposed to start raining this week. It'll be above freezing. I was going to bring a picture too, and I forgot. The daffodils are already starting to come through, so hopefully they'll take care of themselves and not get snowed out. Do we have any announcements? We're having the joint service the middle of April. I didn't write it down exactly, but we'll get that.
Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday,
It's
okay.
April 13th.
The 13th.
What's happening? What we doing?
We're having a joint service with El Dorado, and that will be here.
Here?
Yes, so
Okay.
Derek will be preaching, but we will to ride the food, and we don't ever have any trouble doing that. Everybody's welcome to chip in, but you don't have to, because we will make sure that we have plenty of food for 15 or 20 people.
Like we did last year, too.
Yeah, like we did the last time. We talked about having it at the park, but it's not going to be warm enough, I don't think, so we're probably going to set up like we did before. We'll set up the tables up here and have the serving up here, so there won't be anybody has to go to the basement. Questions? Okay, we're doing a service. I keep promising that I'm not going to talk about politics, because I know that upsets some people. So I went back and pulled something out from Richard Venus out of his book, which I really like his book. And it's reflections on major occurrences. And he was referring to 9/11. So I guess politics is going to bleed into this, whether you want to or not. It won't be primarily, but it's going to be part of it. And that's because politics is a major part of our life right now. And that's what, this is a major event happening in science fiction in your mind. It's hard to picture. But a lot of the things that are happening now are hard to picture. It's hard to imagine it's really going on. This is Richard. He was here for years. Every place he went, everybody really loved him. Richard had a personality that was perfect for a pastor. He was supportive, he was caring. He didn't take any crap off of anybody, but he also knew how to be firm without being argumentative, which there's a few people in our political system that could learn how to do that, could take a lesson in that. And then this other picture, I've kept this for years and years and years. This is a poster I have in my office. Sometimes that's what life feels like. You're the dolphin jumping ahead of this giant ship that's charging down behind you. It doesn't even see you, and it doesn't care if you're there or not. But you are still a living, breathing, sensitive creature who can make a change in the world. And that's what we're going to try and do, is help ourselves make a change. All right, Prelude, Stardust, a perfect choice. Stardust, thank you, Hoagie, the composer and the sandwich. All right, chalice lighting. What if sometimes the flame that burns in the chalice of our faith is nothing less than an ember of hope and nothing more than love set ablaze? What if sometimes all we need to do is follow this flame, one among scores, hundreds, thousands of steadily flickering flames across the land and among so many peoples, on the way to justice and into the land of peace? What if we dare to kindle that chalice? Opening hymn is 35. Unto thy temple, Lord, we come.
Yeah.
affirmation, the tender mercies of our lives. Spirit of compassion, source of life, God of many names, we gather today in gratitude for our many blessings, for being in community, for the tender mercies of our lives. We also ache with grief, concern, and anger about the terrible violence in the world and the human capacity to inflict harm on one another. We seek solace in our seeming powerlessness. We hold in our embrace those hiding in shelters and mourning the deaths of loved ones, the tattered fabric of their lives. We pray for those with the power to create peace, that they may recognize the fragile and valuable humanity of those across from them and see how we are all one. Holy Spirit of mercy, may all who seek comfort and safety find themselves in a place with no fear or hatred, and may all who suffer in pain or in anger be held in gentle, loving care to ease and heal their wounds. As we seek to build the beloved community, may we ever be guided by our faith in the ability of love to conquer injustice, and in our ability to love beyond belief. May it be so. Amen. Richard's talk that he did, and I forgot to bring his book, I usually have it with me, in Reflections, this happened after 9/11. This is the sermon he gave, and he was in, I think, in New York, at least part of that time, and experienced what happened. So that's kind of the basis of what we're talking about. What happens and what your response is and what you do in monumental times. And just to remember 9/11, I went ahead and pulled some pictures on that. And one of the most moving is the people who jumped out of that building when it was collapsing, and they jumped to their deaths. Unbelievable. All right, our children's story is something that's a little bit Eight things to remember when everything goes wrong. Pain is part of growing. Everything in life is temporary. Worrying and complaining changes nothing. Your scars are symbols of your strength. Every little struggle is a step forward. Other people's negativity is not your problem. What's meant to be will eventually be. The best thing you can do is keep going. And that was the essence of Richard's writing, was the best thing to do is keep going. And he had a remarkable ability to find the positive in negative. I highly recommend his book. I think there might be a copy back here if anybody wants to borrow it, or you can borrow the one that I got. He is, and I've read out of his book before. He's a good writer. He's facile. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. and he gets to the heart of the problem without pounding you over the head with it. It's an amazing talent. So, all right, excuse me. Joys and concerns. We got an email from Lou. Denise had her surgery. Evidently, it was the worst shoulder surgery the surgeon had seen for many, many years. The deterioration was pretty amazing. But as you know, when they replace a joint, they replace both ends, the socket and the ball. So she is recovering from that, and hopefully that will go well. So we light a candle for Lou and Denise, and hope they can make it down to see us sometime. And if they need anything, to let us know. We'd be more than happy to help out. Lou, as Lou is wont, he is always concerned about other people. Every move in his life is kind of aimed in that direction. So he's asking if we can help the people of Ukraine, since the country itself seems to have pulled back. If you remember, we sent money and clothes. I think we sent clothes before. There's a church in Columbus. It was either Columbus or Cleveland, a Ukrainian church. And I said we would look into that. I also know the World Bread. There's a chef who feeds people all over the world, and they have a large operation in Ukraine. I know we can donate money there if we like, and I'm sure that would get to the right place. So anyway, I told Lou that we were definitely in support of that, and would have a offering at least one Sunday and maybe one Sunday a month. We'll have to discuss that and see what we agree on. But we would be more than happy to help out the people of Ukraine in any way we could. Okay. Yes.
I just want a candle for Roberta. If you've not spoken with her recently, she has had some eye problems, which she's hoping to resolve soon, but she's not doing a lot of driving right now. It's the latest I've heard. And so let's just light a candle and wish her the best and get over these eye problems so she can get back to more.
Yes, we miss Roberta and miss her music. We love the organ, but we also like to have the organ and piano together. And she plays basically by memory, so I'm sure one of us could go in and pick her up if she wants to come out. She doesn't have to drive every Sunday. Or we could Uber her out here. That's a pretty short trip. So we'll send her a card. Remind me afterwards. We get a card out and send it. Speaking of eye problems, I went to the eye doctor and my cataracts are getting worse. I don't like surgery, having been close to it for many years. But they're telling me that if I don't do the cataract surgery now, as the cataracts get thicker, they get harder to remove and they cause more trouble. So they're recommending. So I go in for the evaluation this next week, not the surgery, just the evaluation. They told me that you can't drive actually you have to have a driver.
Yeah.
But the thing takes like 3 hours, just the preliminary one. And my wife has a life of her own, so what I told her was, I'll drive my truck in and then you can come pick me up after 3 hours, and then I'll come back the next day and get my truck. So we'll see how that works out. So anyway, I'm not looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being able to see a little bit better, because everything's getting pretty gray. But the disadvantage of cataract surgery is right now I don't need glasses to read, and she says when they do cataract surgery, then you can't read anymore. And that's the reason I was putting it off as long as I could. Reading is the most important part of my life. I read all the time. Unfortunately, I even read when I'm driving down the road, which is a real mistake. But I like to read at night, and I don't have to fumble for my glasses. So we're going to have to see what we can do about that.
You get the so you could read, but then you couldn't see far.
Yes, one or the other, and I would rather basically be able to see far. So, because there's nothing worse. I had to wear glasses when I was younger, and there's something called presbyopia, if you're familiar with that. As you get older, your eyes change, and amazingly, they change back to being better as you get older, because I used to have to wear glasses just to see, to walk around. And now I need glasses to pass the driving test, but I don't really need glasses to drive because I can see the road signs, except at night I wear them. So it's a kind of an amazing thing. But then when you're wearing glasses and you go out and it's raining or it's foggy or a branch whips by and knocks you, they're a real pain in the neck. So, all right, on to more important things. Ukraine, we still have our sunflowers. We're going to talk a little bit about Ukraine today because I'm going to compare 9/11 as a momentous thing that caused trouble in our world and how we dealt with it and how Richard recommends that we deal with it. Pretty much the same thing is going on. There's a monumental change going on in our world. All of our assumptions about who we are as a people, who we are as a nation, where we stand in the world, all that is being upset like the apple cart. So we'll have to see if we can deal with that. Let's see. Oh, Israel. Are we really going to have a Riviera on the Gaza and someone else is going to pay for it? Did anyone see, and I almost brought that when I was almost embarrassed, this was put out by the White House. The White House put out this little picture of what it was going to be like with a giant statue of our president, a golden statue, reminds me of Hussein in Iraq. Balloons floating around, belly dancers.
Who put this out?
The White House put this out on the White House sponsored thing. The White House is doing things. The White House, remember, I showed you last week, they put out the picture of Trump as the king. The White House put that out. It's not some kind of spoof thing that some kid in his basement put out. The actual White House did this.
Yeah.
That's what I say. The world is, we're losing our place to stand where we can depend on something being solid and even. Everything is being challenged. Everything we believe is being challenged. All right. Anything else? Right. One more one more candle for those things that remain unsaid. Maybe they're even unthought. Maybe we haven't realized them yet. But the church, the community, which is what we put our support into, is the community. We are here to help you theoretically, physically, any way that you need. And we depend on each other for that support. All right, the message. This is part of the message. I just threw this in because this is the parasite, the bug that causes the parasite for Chagas. Anybody familiar with Chagas? We'll get to that. Okay. Every place is holy ground. That's Richard's book, When Religion is Not Enough. It was published in 2011. And as I said, Richard is with us always, whether we speak his name. He was the foundation for, at least when I came, he was the pastor here. I'm a new person, so I don't know all your previous pastors. And I'm sure they had their own strong points. But I doubt if any of them had the charisma, the sense of ease and support that Richard did. He was subtle. He was uplifting. He was never threatening. Anybody else want to give me some descriptives?
He would listen to you and let you say what you want to say and explain it to him, and I'd ask his opinion, and I respected that guy. I loved the guy.
He was accepting, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the primary feature of someone who needs to be in a position of a counselor, someone who you can trust, someone you can, and you could trust Richard. He didn't betray anybody's confidences. He didn't lose himself. In other words, we saw an example of that in the last thing. He didn't become emotionally involved and start giving you his opinion. He let you talk and ask you questions on what you thought the right thing would. He wanted you to work your way through and find the right answer to whatever your problem was. He was there to support you and tell you that you were cared for and that you were supported, and anything you needed, we would be there for you, but he didn't tell you what to do. All right, after 9/11, he wrote, and I'm sure preached, on our reaction to enormous events. Some of the same techniques might do well today as the barbarians mutilate the walls and pillage the village. The enormous event he referenced, the collapse of the Twin Trade Towers, unimaginable even today, unimaginable. Even today when you look at the pictures and think back, it just shakes your world. Giant skyscrapers just dissolving like pillars of salt and crumbling to the ground with all the innocent inhabitants. The enormous events of today, 4 weeks of disorienting slash and burn. Government workers fired by the thousands, lopped off like a malignant growth on the body politic. 50-year-old service agencies dropped in their tracks, their intended beneficiaries left shocked with empty extended arms. AIDS, Ebola, famine, malaria, dengue, Chagas. Never heard of Chagas? It's coming. It's coming to the southern states. There's a kissing bug, which is what this is what carries the parasite. You're infected for life. There is pain, swelling, fever, heart failure. You can actually get into complete heart failure, so people can die from this. There is no cure once you get it, and it is coming to the southern states. Why? The NIH, the National Institute of Health, the Agriculture Department, the CDC, the people who would stand in the way of this disease spreading in the United States, they have been decimated. They are in the name of saving money. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers have been laid off. Essential federal workers, air traffic controllers have been laid off. Can anybody count the number of air incidents we've had since the inauguration? I count 7. There was just another one yesterday where an engine flamed out on the way to Indianapolis. Planes crashing, planes diverting on the runway where they're almost ready to run over each other, and yet they are still firing FAA controllers and FAA workers. Good luck. Resurgence of measles. It's not just across the ocean crap holes that will be suffering. So Richard's response on the 9/11 in New York, he asked his neighbor in New York the day after 9/11, what was the neighbor doing? The reply, I'm taking out the trash. Life goes on. That's the first realization, even in a disaster, even in a tornado or hurricane, an emotional disaster, a death in the family, an accident, life goes on. Certain things have to be done. Certain things have to be cared for. Certain people have to be cared for. Each of us has responsibilities to our family, to our friends, to our neighbors, to our church, to our country. Not oblivious, not numb, but obligations and commitments that have to be honored. Just as today, blame was assigned. Fingers pointed at the 2011 scapegoats, the marginalized. If you remember Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, it was the homosexuals' fault. It was the feminists' fault. It was the ACLU's fault. It was the fault of abortions. God was punishing us, and Jerry Falwell blamed them all. Who gets the receiving end today? DEI and Democrats are the designated evildoers. When the helicopter crashed into the plane in Washington, D.C., it was a failure of DEI. They tried to say the helicopter pilot was a trans woman. There is a trans woman in the Virginia National Guard who flies helicopters, but she's still alive. She was not flying that helicopter. There was a white man flying the helicopter, a white man flying the airplane, white men in the control booth at the control tower. There was a mix-up and a misunderstanding, but it was not the fault of DEI, no matter what anybody says. So the cause of all these failures, from the price of eggs to helicopters colliding with airliners, is somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Where in that case, the real perpetrators were not an enemy nation, like the attack on Pearl Harbor, but a band of committed, fanatical, cultural opponents striking the physical and psychological foundations of a nation. If you remember, the people who carried out 9/11 was not a nation, it was a band of fanatical opponents who didn't like the culture of the United States, and they struck in a way that nobody could imagine that they could do. Richard recounts how a Professor Barber then described the situation of jihadists as a radicalization that pits culture against culture, people against people, that pits tribe against tribe. Quote, there are a growing number of people who seem to be against technology, against pop culture, against integrated markets, against modernity itself. Does any of that ring a bell? Does any of that sound familiar than what we're hearing today? Against technology, against culture, the popular culture, against integrated markets, against trading with other people, against being modern, against that kind of attitude that we want to grow into. Do you see any similarities? Barbarians at the gate, slash and burn, Social Security, Medicaid, FEMA, NOAA. You know what NOAA is, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration? They are also being cut. The people who warned us of tornadoes and hurricanes. I'll give you a little example. Did you see on the news last night? They have stopped the sending up of weather balloons in Alaska. Seems like a minor thing, a good place to save money. Why would you send up weather balloons in Alaska? Because the weather balloons in Alaska tell us that the Arctic wave that comes down from the north and brings weather to the south, to the entire United States, that is the first inkling of what that weather is doing. Is it going faster? Is it going slower? Is it getting warmer? Is it getting colder? Is the height of the wave changing? That is the information we need to predict our weather, and these people have stopped doing that. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's like they go in with a meat axe. They're not finding out waste and problems. They're just cutting giant amounts out, and then they're telling us how many billions of dollars they're saving. But there's no, how can you tell? Because they've laid off the statisticians who keep track of the money that's saved and spent. This is insanity. It truly is insanity. All right. And further, Richard recounted how this professor helped in his own way. Not only did he help by trying to understand the situation, he was taking food and drink to the thousands of volunteers excavating the pile. You should have seen the pictures. You probably did see the pictures of the remains of the crumbled twin trade towers. First responders from all over the nation came and volunteered and dug through the rubble to find human remains and to find the cause and try to explain why these two giant skyscrapers that seem permanently anchored to the earth could be totally destroyed by one explosion clear at the top, and why they would collapse all the way down. And I'm sure you heard the explanations. When the steel and everything melted on the upper floors, the building could not contain the weight of that floor collapsing to the floor below it, and then that collapsed the floor below it, and it was like a domino effect that went clear down to the ground. That was not prepared for. No engineer had even vaguely conceived of that happening, and that's something that they needed to prepare for. One restaurant contributed 12 apple brown Bettys, still warm. You know what a brown Betty is? You ever heard of a brown Betty? Brown Betty is an Eastern thing. It's compared to our apple crisp that we have here. You know the difference between an apple crisp and a brown Betty? I found this really interesting. A brown Betty is an apple crisp with buttered breadcrumbs as a topping instead of oats or nuts. An apple crisp has oats or chopped up walnuts or pecans or whatever on it. A brown Betty has buttered breadcrumbs, which sounds weird, but it also, if you think about it, like a softened breadcrumb on top would be nice and chewy and definitely have that butter flavor. Anyway, 12 brown Bettys for hundreds of responders. Insurmountable. And yet, he ended up giving the last one to an exhausted older firefighter sitting on a bucket. Thank you, the firefighter said. This is the most lovely thing I've seen in 4 days. Maybe, for us too, a simple act of decent generosity could bring relief and renewal of hope, or at least respite. What do you think? let me throw in a couple sides. I got a few minutes here. Elon Musk has created an artificial intelligence chatbot called Grok. It has drawn an alarming historical parallel. President Trump's combative meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky, where Trump scrapped a deal that could have ended Russia's war, bears, I quote, a significant similarity, unquote, to the appeasement policies toward Hitler that led to World War II. The artificial intelligence's remarks surfaced after Friday's meeting, where Trump repeatedly berated Zelensky, downplayed the threat of Russian President Putin, and warned the Ukrainian leader that he was gambling with World War III. And here's another one. On November 1st of last year, the University of Nebraska Press released a book of Nazis at the water cooler, War Criminals in German Government Agency. It tells how incriminated ex-Nazis infested the post-war German civil service. 4 days after that book was published, Trump was elected to a second term as president. Like at least half the nation, this author was worried about this next coming 4 years. The German democracy survived the presence of ex-Nazis in government jobs after the war, but what about American democracy? Are we, under Trump, at the beginning of an American-style Gleichschaltung, which Gleichschaltung is the German word for synchronization or bringing into lines? Bringing into line. We all know the vindictiveness and the power that the office of the president has. If you don't agree, you're fired. If you don't agree, you're pushed out. Civil service, who used to have protection, union contracts are being arbitrarily canceled. Civil servants are being fired without cause. It always says you have a cause, but there is no cause. They are being asked to name 5 things that they did in the past week to justify their response. And if they don't respond, that's considered a resignation. People are losing their jobs wholesale across the entire government. Entire agencies are being shut. I'm sure you've seen the results. The 16 people that control Ebola in Africa, they've all been fired. There's only one person left to try and control Ebola. Ebola doesn't care about borders. Chagas disease doesn't care about borders. We are going to be liable to measles. You know how many people have measles in Texas now? It's gone up to 140 today. And measles, have you heard the statistics on measles? If someone who has measles, not even inactive, you can spread measles 4 days before you break out and 4 days after you break out. So in the 4 days before you break out, if you walk into a room for 2 hours after you leave that room, 90% of the people who are unvaccinated in that room will get the measles. This stuff spreads like wildfire. So the 140 we've seen now is only the tip of the iceberg. Measles is now being discovered in New Jersey, in Michigan, in Washington, and California. Measles was considered eliminated from the United States in 2011. And the only cases we saw were when unvaccinated people went to Africa or someplace where they don't vaccinate and brought a case back. And then they found that person and treated him, and that was the end of it. Kennedy, our new supervisor of measles, said it's no problem. There have been outbreaks every year. There have been outbreaks like 2 or 3 people, maybe 24 people. Nobody has died from measles since 2011. They've already had 1 death in Texas. 1 death in Texas already, and we just started. All right. Sorry to bring politics back into it again, but not really. This is something that affects our lives and will affect our lives in the coming future, and it's something we need to be aware of. Not to hide from it, and not to be in fear of it, but as Richard says, to do our part, no matter how small or how large, to help the country, the community, and our little church group persevere and make it through. So, and also I think you've noticed the flu epidemic is rising. So when you go to Kroger or Walmart or any place where there's a large group of people, wear your mask and disinfect your hands again. I guess I'll throw this in. We always participate with the WHO, the United Nations Health Organization, to figure out what the vaccine will be for the next coming flu year. Everybody pools their information, figures out what strains of the flu virus is the dangerous ones, and that's why they create the vaccines. We canceled that meeting this year. The United States is not participating in the WHO flu examination meeting. So the government said, we will still have a flu vaccine, and we will tell the manufacturers what to make, but are they going to just pick a number out of the air or throw darts at the board? They aren't going to have an educated choice. They're just going to, and maybe it will happen. Maybe the meeting, maybe sounder minds will say, we have to have this meeting, we have to know what to produce, but we know the guy in charge of this doesn't even believe in vaccines, so I do not have real high hopes for that. So it falls to us to protect yourself, wear a mask, wash your hands. That actually does work. During the COVID epidemic, I never got COVID the whole time until I went and worked at the polls and had to handle like 420 driver's licenses through that little scanner, and my protection fell down there. I didn't protect myself enough, and I ended up getting COVID, but I never got it from the grocery store or the hardware store or the fair or anything else. So, all right. Comments? Offering. If you have something to share, please do. If you need something, let us know.
Fish.
Yeah, first Sunday. This is a Fish Sunday, and we will hear Love Will Guide Us. Extinguishing the chalice, our calling in the world. We have come to the end of our service, but not the end of our calling in the world. We close our time together with a humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace each day, every day. We are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible when justice and equity ground us in all that we do. May we go forth with light and warmth of our chalice in our hearts until we are together again. By my favorite person, Rebecca Savage.
Closing hymn.
Closing hymn. Oh, I missed that, didn't I? 34. 34 is, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. come, our hearts control, and our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free. All right, we leave our candle lit as is our tradition, basically for Lou and Denise and for the people in Africa, other people all over the world who have lost the support of the United States people, not by our choice, but by the choice of the government. Things are going to get pretty hairy here for the next few months, probably. Everything that has been undone can be redone, but it will take time. All right. Our last picture, this, I'm sure Richard would be in support of this 100%. We can do it. Keep calm and carry on. Anybody know the history of that poster?
Rosie the River.
Rosie the River.
Can you see?
Rosie the River.
Rosie the Riveter, yes. Rosie the Riveter, that poster was actually created in 1943 in World War II by the GE airplane, some plant in New York, to basically boost the morale of the workers. It was only published in a few places then, but it became such a popular thing that they continued with it. It's grown much more popular since the end of the war. Keep calm and carry on. That's a British tradition from generations back. And the two go well together. I'm sure Richard would add his stamp of approval to keep calm and carry on. And actually, I put in another one for a cup. Our obligatory see a horse. This one is a nice winter thing that I ran across the other day. We'll see if it'll... When a horse falls through the ice, that is a terrible event. And it takes a lot of people working together to make that satisfactory. Yes? Postlude, yes. Postlude coming up is Red Sails in the Sunset. Another water connected. Richard was here with us today. That's the way the service was conducted, forgetting things and getting lost and using your reminders to get us back on track. So donuts and coffee. Have a good week. If you need something, let us know. And if you can contribute something, let us know.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Nice job.
Could you hear all right?
Yeah.
Good. That's better than trying to use
I
those.
forgot my hearing aids, but I.
Well, I still-
I heard for a change.
Okay. I was gonna say, I have these things here, but I'm not very good. I need to get Emerson here to help me set these stupid things up. So when I turned them on, I couldn't get it connected to the phone. I know it works.
I bought these hearing aids just to hear you, and then I go out without them. And that's the only time I ever wear them. And I had the feeling, I got into the car, I had the feeling, what am I forgetting? And then I get halfway to pick up